Thank you for having us.
To start with, Doctor, perhaps you can, give us your view of what the state of labor is in the country.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The state of labor in the country is a bit worrisome, given the fact that we have laws that are supposed to guide how labor is supposed to be administrated in the country, but yet you find certain entities or people that are participating in this space, which requires one to be accredited to be able to, in order to be able to participate or take part in activities that are happening in that space. So we have been observing all the activities that are happening in the country, and one can only put then really the blame at organized labor and their absence in this space. Their absence needs to be bold, it needs to be visible, and it needs to be determinate. So at the moment, it is not as it is supposed to be, because we are finding all kinds of entities and characters that are working in this space of labor. Thus, at the end of the day, it becomes an issue as to how either whether it is workers or whether it is employers, how they are treating each other. And also the other issue is that maybe we have to look at the larger economic space on what is happening within there to say that is labor or work becoming more and more precarious, so that everybody that is employed, that is you and myself, that we are not safe in the work of play, in the space of work. Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to know, what are some of the labor issues that exist according to your knowledge? Mr. Amukwa, let's start with you, and then you can also add on to that, Doctor.
Yes, thank you very much. I can see there are labor issues that are happening. So being that out of the inspection that usually conducted by the labor inspector, in the cases that are always been lodged with the Ministry of Labor, there are some of the contraventions that we are experiencing, that some of the employers, they are contravening, being the issue of non-payment and the non-payment of overtime, the issue of working more hours, and also the other issues of employees are not adhering to some of the collective agreement that they've signed with either their trade union, or which are as a result of the collective bargaining that they can have concluded. So this issue is that there are some kind of ignorance per se, due to the fact that the provision of the Labor Act provided the responsibility.
Are you talking about ignorance of the Act, now of the Labor Act?
Ignorance of the Labor Act,
okay,
so that they can put more effort in terms of the compliance with the Labor Act. So those are the kind of the, coming to your question of what are the issues that we are normally exist currently. So those are the things that we have observed. When it comes to the issue or out of the inspection that usually conducted by the labor inspectors, and also the cases that we have received. So those are the things that we have currently noted about.
Doctor, would you like to add on to that?
Yes. It actually speaks to the bigger picture as to whether labor administration is well equipped and capacitated, so that all sorts of funny things, whether it's exploitation of workers or abuse of employers, does not take place. So is to say, does the Ministry of Labor, where my brother comes from, have got sufficient capacity for them to be able to administer issues that pertains to labor? If we are to look at what has been happening of late, these are issues of harassment and violence at the workplace. And Namibia has ratified this convention of the International Labour Organization, and it has to be domesticated so that such things doesn't happen. So it's to say whether the ministry is in a position to be able to do its work so that such things doesn't take place. Of course, everything should not be left to government alone, but is to say, does people even know whether there is such a convention. And when I say people, this is about trade unions, whether they have educated their members so that they know that there is such a convention of international nature that is to be domesticated. So in this particular case is to say, if we have to look from the government perspective, is to say, do they have sufficient capacity? We have seen the budget of the Ministry of Labor being reduced ever since, over the past 10 years. You can go and check. So that in itself is a problem because you can have a good act, because the Labor Act is not that bad, but it lacks teeth so that it's able to really enable or create a conducive environment for employment creation and harmonious employment relations.
But
Yes.
is the situation on the ground where there's lack of adherence of workers' rights by employers in Namibia? Is it solely due to the fact that there's lack of knowledge where this ratification of this convention is concerned?
Not quite, because the Labour Act is as old as 1992 and being amended in 2007. So it's really whether people see the importance of coexistence in the world of work. And it becomes problematic.
Yes.
Yeah, it becomes problematic when the world of work is becoming more and more informal and more in the unorganized. If we have to look at the incidences that happened, I've got primary information that, of course, that unions were involved also in this matter, especially the one that happened in the Kavango. But the fact that it was not communicated to the public so that the public knows that this is what is happening in itself is a problem. It translates that the world of work has become precarious. Nobody really cares about you. And it's an issue of disregard for human rights.
Yes.
And the promotion of gaining of profits. So that becomes problematic. And I think the important thing here is for us as a nation not to only look when the foreigner is disregarding these laws, but when a national also disregard the laws of the land. Yes.
Mr. Yes, sure.
Yeah. Maybe to end there to what the doctor has said. Yeah, it's as he clearly indicated that it's a responsibility of everyone when it comes to this tripartite. As we know that the Labour Act is a result of the tripartite consultation, whereby both parties they start with the social dialogue, whereby everyone comes on the table and now discuss the issue pertaining the labor issues. Yeah, coming to the issue of violence, Namibia has ratified the ILO International Labour Standard or Convention 190, the violation and harassment. That was in December 2020. So from there, the aim is to eliminate the issue of violence and harassment at the world of work, at all the workplace. So by that, Namibia has the Namibia has made an effort, or the ministry per se, to educate the master trainers, so that they can go and educate the agent, so that they can be able now to go and educate the issue of harassment, in order to educate throughout the country, so that the people can have that kind of information. But as the question is that enough? Yes. So we still need to more, due to the other kind of challenges, being the resources and everything, as the doctor has alluded. So we need to do more. The ministry is committed to do more and make sure that we have trained many people from different types of institutions around the country, and we have started even at Tsumeb. We go as far as Rundu. We go to Oshiwarongo, and we also go to Oshakati on Otapi. So now this week, the people they are trying to give that information to the southern region of the country. We are trying to educate the whole community, the whole country, the issue of violence and harassment at workplace, so that the people also can understand. They cannot turn the issue of violence of such a game, a simple game. So they have to understand the impact and how it's affecting the country, and they should know how to report to the ministry and wherever also to assist. And also the employer should give this right of the employees, the right to associate, to go to join their trade union of their choice, and so that the people can be able now to understand, so that their dignity and the right has to be respected at workplace. Thank you.
Doctor, let's talk about, you know, where the rights of workers begin, and obviously equally the rights of an employer.
Yeah, I think on that point we have to hail our constitution, because if it's not the only one, it's one in the few that recognizes the rights of the employer, and thereafter the right of association. Now, the problem is only when we have an economy that is so dislodged that even if the ministry is putting up effort of information dissemination, it only reaches some, but it may not reach the rest. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the rest that are not rich are actually the mostly employed people in precarious instances. Our last labor force survey of 2016-2017 at the time was showing that it's over 50%, getting to 60%. So if that is the percentage of the kind of employment that you have in the country.
Are you specifically, just for clarification, are you talking about the informal market?
Yeah, informal economy. Yeah, not the market, the economy.
The economy, yes, okay.
So, and many people who end up enduring this kind of disadvantages are those that are in the informal economy. Many people that are working for service stations are not organized, and even if they want to be organized, they fear victimization. Yeah. So what needs to be done is for the government to put more effort in realizing recommendation 204 of the International Labour Organization of transitioning from the informal to the formal economy. But that doesn't have to be comprehensive. It has to be in parts that are possible to be done at the time. To say, for example, if a worker at the service station is not organized, even if they are being whipped to get a loan, nobody will know about it unless it becomes an expose.
Right.
Yeah. And whether the owner is also being whipped, we don't know whether it becomes an act of performance or a real deal. So people need, government needs to educate its people, by that I mean the nation, of what its rights are. And the rights of the employee also just ends where the rights of the employer begins. And that's why, coming back to what he's saying about the issue of the tripartite, is to say the government has taken the responsibility to ensure that the environment becomes conducive for all of us to coexist. But of course, they will find that there will be some rotten apples. But in this current instance, we can't really say that they are really rotten apples. The problem is actually structural. In 2023, you won't have somebody being whipped to access whether it's a loan or whether it's a game at the place of work. Yeah, because we have passed that stage a long time ago.
A long time ago.
And the important thing is to say, the Ministry of Labour should also not be reactive. It must be proactive, so that things of this nature does not happen. We have heard of the Chinese instances here in Chinatown and across the country.
Right.
We have also heard, or we know of instances that have happened also in the formal sector, whether it is of you NBC employees when you went on strike, whether it is of employees that are on strike now, whether it is of employees at UNAM where they went on strike and so on. So it's to say, how do we learn to know our rights, to know where they start and where they end? And in fact, because this act has been last reviewed or amended in 2007, we are in 2023 now. So something needs to be done.
Right.
Yeah, because circumstances have changed.
What is your response to what the doctor has just said, Mr. Amukwa?
Maybe it's not a response, but it's an addition, per se. As I clearly indicated from the from the beginning that the Labor Act that we are enforcing, it's not a one-man job. It's kind of a result of a tripartite, whereby it has also, to such an extent that it has also the responsibility of who should do what and what should do and when and how.
Right.
So when it comes to the issue of what is the duties of the employees being at work and what is the right of the employers, what is also the duties of the trade unions, what they can do to want their members, and that kind of tripartite should be, it has a sole responsibility to make sure that the socio-economical or the labor labor system in Namibia, it's conducive for everyone. Yes, it's quite true that the government is there to create a conducive environment for like the issue of social dialogues, or brings the parties on the table. While it's also like that, it's also part of everyone now to create that conducive. The ministry, I have read many, even in the newspapers or everywhere, whereby ministries has received a lot of labor complaints, and most of the labor complaints have been successfully resolved, and some of also the money they were collected and they were given back to the rightful owner, that were owed by the employer, per se. So so the issue of labor unrest, it's quite obvious in Namibia. It's there, but the issue is that the government or the ministry is doing its best. Yeah.
I just want to interject that
Yes.
the doctor mentioned how, you know, the percentage of the informal economy, as he put it, is continually rising, and a lot of you know, big percentage of that sector is unorganized, as he also mentioned.
Exactly.
So when we do see these incidences happen, specifically the more gruesome and cringeworthy ones happens within that percentage of you know, the informal
Exactly.
economy. How then does the ministry you know, sort of come in and you know, dissolve or sort out this matter, and what are the repercussions for these employees? Because simply because you know, these people are not organized, these employees don't belong to trade unions, etc. Do we then say, oh, our hands are tied, there's actually nothing that we can do to assist them, to help them, and we hope that it doesn't happen again?
Okay, thank you very much. The application of the Labor Act does not discriminate of saying this is an formal and this is an informality. As long as there is an employment relationship between the two parties, obvious the basic condition of employment in terms of the Labor Act has to apply. Being you are in a homestead and you employ a domestic worker,
Right.
and you fail to honor to the basic conditions or to the agreement that we have set up, and which you're supposed also to respect, because that's a reciprocal rights when it comes to the condition of employment. Obvious, the Labor Act has to come in and try to investigate the contraventions and make sure that you are comply or adhere to the provision of the Labor Act. It does not even discriminate of say this is an informality and this is a formality. Yes, however, there are issue of informality and it needs now to come, as I have alluded, from social dialogues, now the consultation, because it's a national issue. Thank you.
We unfortunately, of course, don't have all the time this evening, but just to round off our discussion, Doctor, what are the urgent areas you would say that need to be changed, you know, within the country for a prosperous and improved labor environment?
Yeah, the first call is the Labor Inspectorate. It needs to be empowered. We don't want a situation where a labor inspector cannot go and address an issue because there is no car, or because they don't have a cell phone, because to receive the call that there is a labor violation in the labor sphere. Secondly, the budget of the Ministry of Labor needs to be enhanced, because labor creates prosperity. So if you're not promoting this ministry, then there is no point. Yeah, everybody will end up being in a very bad space. And also the other thing is that there needs to be continuous education of labor rights. The workers need to know their rights.
And perhaps hand in hand with that also human rights, because they do dance very closely
of course,
together.
That's why I mentioned the Constitution earlier.
Right.
Yes. So it is very, very important. And it's to say also, the trade unions need to start to think what their role is in this current economic state as organized labor. We know that informal economy also, there are workers that are organizing themselves organically. But will they get, how will they get to the social dialogue he's talking about? Because in other countries, they are speaking about social dialogue plus, you know. So when are we going to get there?
Right.
So these are some of the things we really need to think about. And to say also, and we need to know how many of our labor force is operating in the informal economy and how many are operating in the formal economy. Because me and you now may be in the office under air-conditioned circumstances, but we're actually informally employed without you knowing. So it's some of these things that needs to be worked on at the level of labor administration.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes.
Dr. Akuupa, Mr. Amukwa, thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we speak to the Namibian Statistics Agency. Stay with us.